If you carry me up the stairs, I'll tell you a secret, the little girl whispered. Ethan almost didn't hear her at first. The stairwell smelled of rust, damp concrete, and old oil-familiar scents to a mechanic who spent his life beneath broken engines and leaking pipes. He had come to this aging apartment building only to drop off a repaired generator for the landlord. 5 minutes, unload, leave. That was the plan. But then he saw her. She was sitting on the third step from the bottom, thin legs folded carefully, as if moving them too much might break something fragile inside her. A small oxygen tank rested beside her, the tube looped around her ears and into her nose. Her hair was tied into uneven pigtails, one slipping loose. She looked far too small for the heavy silence around her. Ethan froze, one hand still gripping the railing. "Hey, kid," he said softly. "You shouldn't be sitting here. These stairs are cold." She looked up at him with eyes far too calm for a child. "Not scared, not shy. Just tired. I'm waiting," she said. "For who?" "For you," she replied, as if it were obvious. Ethan let out a quiet breath, unsure whether to laugh or worry. "I don't think so. I'm just the mechanic." She smiled a little. "That's okay. You're strong." He glanced around, half expecting an adult to appear and scold him for talking to a stranger's child. The stairwell remained empty. "Where's your mom?" he asked. "At the hospital," she said. "She works there. But today she's a patient." Something in her voice, too steady, too practiced, made his chest tighten. "And you?" he asked. "What are you doing here alone?" She tapped the oxygen tank gently. "I got tired." Ethan crouched so they were eye level. Up close, he could see the faint blue shadows under her eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly, even when she tried to keep them still. "Waiting for what?" he asked again, quieter now. "For the stairs," she said, and looked at him carefully as if measuring his heart. "And for you to carry me." Ethan blinked. "Carry you?" She nodded once. "If you carry me up the stairs, I'll tell you a secret." For a moment, the world felt strangely suspended, like the pause before an engine finally turns over. Ethan should have said no. He knew that. Strangers didn't carry children. Rules existed for a reason. Sense existed for a reason, but something about her certainty, about the way she said, "you," not "someone," undid him. "What floor?" he asked. "5," she replied. "That's a lot of stairs." "I know," she said. "That's why I asked you." He hesitated, then shrugged off his jacket and spread it over her shoulders. "All right," he said. "But only because you look like you'd blow away in the wind." Her smile widened, small but victorious. Ethan lifted her carefully. She weighed almost nothing. Too little for a child her age. Her head rested against his shoulder, warm and light, and he was suddenly very aware of how steady he needed to be. They took the first step together. The stairs creaked beneath his boots. Each step echoed long and hollow, like the building itself was listening. "What's your name?" he asked as they climbed. "Lily," she said. "Yours?" "Ethan." She repeated it softly, as if testing how it sounded. "Ethan." They climbed in silence for a while. Her breathing was shallow, but even matching the quiet rhythm of his steps. "Does it hurt?" he asked, without really knowing what he meant. "Sometimes," she said. "Mostly when people lie." He frowned. "Lie about what?" "About being fine," she replied. He didn't know how to answer that. By the second floor. His arms began to ache, not from her weight, but from how carefully he was holding her, as if one wrong movement might shatter something precious. He adjusted his grip. "You okay?" he asked. "I like being carried," she said. "It feels like flying, but slower." He smiled despite himself. Halfway to the third floor, she shifted slightly and whispered, "Do you believe in promises?" "I try to," he said. "Some are easier than others?" "My mom says promises are heavier than people think," Lily said. "That's why some drop them." Ethan swallowed. He wasn't used to children talking like this. It felt like she had lived several lifetimes already. By the third floor, he was breathing harder. Sweat formed at his temples. "You still want that secret?" he asked, attempting lightness. "Yes," she said. "But not yet." He chuckled. Of course not. They reached the fourth floor, and Lily's grip tightened around his neck. Are you tired? She asked. A little, he admitted. Don't put me down, she said quickly. Please. I won't, he said without hesitation. She relaxed against him. Relief soft and immediate dot as they climbed the last flight. The hallway above came into view, dim lights. Chipped paint, doors that had seen better years. Ethan felt like he was walking toward something important. Though he couldn't explain why dot at the top of the stairs, he stopped. There, he said gently. Fifth floor. Lily didn't speak right away. Is this where you live? He asked. No, she said softly. This is where I remember. That made him pause. Remember what? She lifted her head and looked at him. Her eyes were bright now, not with excitement, but with something deeper. Something heavy, you promised, she said. He nodded. The secret. She leaned closer, her voice barely more than breath. I know you, she whispered. Ethan laughed nervously. I don't think so, kiddo. Yes, she said. You just don't remember me. His smile faded. She pointed down the stairs toward the exit. A long time ago, you carried someone else like this. His heart skipped. It was raining, Lily continued. Your hands were shaking. There was blood on your shirt. Ethan's chest tightened, a memory clawing its way to the surface. You drove very fast, she said. You kept saying, stay with me? Please stay with me. The hallway felt suddenly too small. That was my mom. Lily said. Ethan staggered slightly and tightened his grip instinctively. No, he whispered. Yes. You didn't know her name then, but you held her hand anyway. The memory crashed into him with brutal clarity, an accident on a wet road, twisted metal, a woman trapped and fading. His truck. His hands pressing against a wound. His voice breaking as he begged a stranger not to die before the ambulance arrived. I thought... His voice failed. I never knew what happened to her. Lily smiled gently. She lived. His knees almost gave out. She still remembers your voice, Lily said. She says it followed her into the dark and pulled her back. Ethan closed his eyes, a single tear escaping despite his effort to stop it. I've been wanting to meet you, Lily continued. But Mama said heroes don't always know they're heroes. He shook his head. I'm not. You are, she said firmly. To us. A door at the end of the hallway creaked open. A woman stepped out slowly, pale but standing, her hand braced against the wall. When her eyes met Ethan's, her breath caught, their gazes locked. Recognition bloomed slow, trembling, undeniable. Ethan? She whispered. He couldn't speak. Lily rested her head against his shoulder and smiled. Content. That's my other secret, she murmured. You were never done with us. And in that quiet hallway, with a child in his arms and a past he thought was lost standing before him, Ethan realized this wasn't the end of a story. It was only the beginning. Ethan didn't realize he was crying until Lily reached up and wiped his cheek with her small thumb. You're leaking, she said softly, not teasing, just observant. He let out a shaky breath that turned into something between a laugh and a sob. Slowly, carefully, he lowered her to the floor of the fifth-floor hallway, keeping one arm around her back until he was sure she was steady. The woman standing a few steps away, Lily's mother, looked like she might collapse if she moved any closer. I'm sorry, Ethan said hoarsely, not knowing who he was apologizing to. I didn't know. I swear I never knew. You weren't supposed to, the woman replied. Her voice trembled, but her eyes never left his face. You just showed up when everything was falling apart. Lily watched them both, her gaze moving between them as if she were watching two puzzle pieces, finally realized they belonged to the same picture. Mom, she said gently, this is the man I told you about, the one from your stories. Her mother nodded. I know, sweetheart. She took a step forward, then another, until she was standing right in front of Ethan, up close. He could see how tired she was, how illness had carved hollows into her cheeks, but also how strong she was, how stubbornly alive. I never got to thank you, she said. That night, the doctors told me if I'd arrived 5 minutes later, Lily would have grown up without a mother. Ethan's chest tightened painfully. I just did what anyone would. She shook her head slowly. No, anyone else would have panicked or driven away or waited for help. You didn't. Silence stretched between them, thick with everything that had gone unsaid for years. Lily tugged gently at Ethan's sleeve. You carried me all the way, she said. You didn't even complain? He crouched in front of her, forcing a smile. I've carried heavier things. She studied his face, serious again, not heavier than this. He knew she wasn't talking about her weight. A sudden cough racked Lily's small body, sharp and hollow. Her mother moved instantly, kneeling beside her, checking the oxygen tube. Her hands practiced, but shaking just a little too much. Ethan felt fear bloom, sudden and fierce. She's okay, her mother said quickly, though the words sounded more like a prayer than a fact. She just needs to rest. Lily nodded, but her eyes drifted shut for a moment longer than Ethan liked. They moved inside the apartment, small and sparsely furnished. The walls were bare except for a few crayon drawings taped unevenly stick, figures holding hands, a sun always shining too big in the corner. Ethan gently helped Lily onto a worn couch, propping her up with pillows the way her mother showed him. She's been in and out of hospitals most of her life, her mother said quietly, as if Lily might hear even though her eyes were closed. Congenital heart condition? Some days are good, some aren't. Ethan sat on the edge of the chair opposite them, his hands clenched together. Is there treatment? There is, she said. But it's expensive. And complicated. And there's a waiting list. He nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. He had spent his life fixing things, engines, transmissions, broken machines that only needed time and effort. This felt different. This felt terrifying. Lily stirred. Ethan? I'm here, he said instantly. Can you tell me something? She asked, eyes still closed. Anything. Are you going to disappear now that you know? The question hit him harder than any revelation that day. He looked at her mother, then back at Lily. No, he said without thinking. I'm not going anywhere. Lily smiled faintly. Good, I don't like unfinished stories. Days passed, and Ethan found himself returning to the 5th floor again and again. At first, he told himself it was coincidence. He had deliveries nearby, repairs in the area. But soon he stopped pretending. He brought groceries, fixed the leaky sink, replaced a flickering light bulb that had been ignored too long. He never stayed too long, never pushed. He just showed up. Lily noticed everything. You came back, she said one afternoon, curled under a blanket. Still here, he replied. You're bad at disappearing. She concluded. Her mother watched him from the kitchen doorway, gratitude and worry warring in her eyes. One evening, after Lily had fallen asleep, she finally spoke. You don't owe us this, she said quietly. You already saved my life once? Ethan shook his head. I didn't know then. I do now. That's exactly what scares me, she admitted. People come out of pity or guilt, and then they leave when it gets hard. He met her gaze, steady. I'm not here because I feel sorry for you. Then why? She asked. He hesitated. Because something broke in me the day I drove away from that hospital without knowing if you lived. I thought I'd just failed and moved on, but now I know that night didn't end. It just waited. Her eyes filled with tears she didn't wipe away. One night, Lily's condition worsened. The call came just after midnight. Ethan didn't even remember grabbing his keys, only the sound of his truck roaring to life, the streets blurring as he drove faster than he should have, heart pounding with a familiar, dreadful rhythm. At the hospital, machines beeped and nurses moved quickly. Lily lay small and pale beneath white sheets, her chest rising unevenly. Her mother stood frozen beside the bed, fingers laced together so tightly her knuckles were white. Ethan took her hand without thinking. I can't lose her, she whispered, voice breaking. I can't. You won't, he said, though fear clawed at him. She's stubborn. Like her mom. Hours passed. When the doctor finally approached, his expression was gentle but grave. She needs surgery, he said. Soon we can stabilize her, but without it... He didn't finish the sentence. After he left, the room felt unbearably quiet. Ethan stared at Lily, then at her mother. A decision formed in him, sudden and absolute. How much? He asked. She shook her head immediately. No, I won't. I didn't ask if you would, he said softly. I asked how much. Ethan, I've spent my whole life fixing things one bolt at a time, he continued. I don't have much, but I have enough. And if I don't, I'll find a way. Tears streamed down her face. You don't even know us. He smiled sadly. I know enough. The surgery happened 2 days later. Ethan waited in the hallway, hands greasy from habit even though there was nothing to fix, pacing the same stretch of floor until the tiles blurred together. When the doors finally opened and the surgeon smiled tired but relieved, Ethan sank into a chair and cried openly. Not caring who saw, when Lily woke up, she searched the room with sleepy eyes. You're still here, she murmured when she saw him. Always, he said, voice thick. Weeks later, they returned to the apartment on the 5th floor. Lily was weaker, but brighter somehow, as if hope itself had color now, one afternoon, as Ethan carried her up the stairs again slower this time. Careful, she leaned close and whispered, I have another secret. He smiled. You're full of those. She nodded. I asked you to carry me that first day because I was scared, but also because I wanted to see if you would. If I would what? If you'd choose us, she said simply. He stopped at the landing, emotion flooding his chest. And? He asked. She rested her head on his shoulder, content. You did. Ethan realized then that some people enter your life not to be saved, but to save you back, in ways you never see coming, and this time he wasn't letting go.